Hello and welcome to Module 1 of the Healthy Lifestyle Program, Move Those Muscles. I am Natalie Lascano. I'm the Wellness Coordinator with UF Communications and Work Life, and I will be the presenter for this program. So before we get started with the actual content, I wanted to give a brief overview of what the Healthy Lifestyle Program is. So this program is a crash course boot camp program into healthy living. We will discuss several different concepts and quickly build up our knowledge base on what a healthy lifestyle is. With each module, there will be actionable takeaways to help put into practice what we have learned in that module. And the overall goal for this program is to help identify opportunities to be healthy by increasing physical activity, making healthier food choices, reducing sedentary behavior, managing our stress, sleeping better, and just adopting healthier lifestyle choices in general. So please remember that this is a 6-module program, and each module will discuss a specific topic on our way to building healthier habits and a healthier lifestyle. I do encourage you to take your time in working through each module instead of trying to watch them all in one sitting. So maybe watch one module on Monday, spend the rest of the week implementing what you have learned in that module, creating new habits, and then the following week start on the next module and continue that process until you're done with the Healthy Lifestyle program. And please make sure to take a look at our supplemental materials. There is a handout associated with each module, and that'll help you to take notes and to help you get the most benefit out of what you are learning here. Okay, so our objectives for Module 1 are to introduce physical activity, review physical activity and sedentary behavior recommendations, break down some common barriers to physical activity, and establish SMART goals related to physical activity. So first we have to define what is physical activity. So please take a look at the pictures shown on the slide here and ask yourself, which of these count as physical activity? Why or why not? See, the answer is that all of them count as physical activity because physical activity is just any body movement that works your muscles and requires more energy than resting. So as long as you're not sleeping or just sitting on the couch, you are most likely participating in physical activity. Now, of course, there are varying levels of physical activity, but what I hope you take away from this information is that being active is not just limited to hitting the gym or hitting the track. You can be physically active anywhere, doing anything. And there are some recommendations for physical activity, and that would be 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity per week. So this would just be 30 minutes divided among 5 days. Additionally, it is recommended that you get at least 2 to 3 days of resistance training or strength training each week. And so this could be as simple as body weight exercises, stretching, yoga, walking, biking, really anything. But you may be asking, what exactly is moderate intensity activity, and how do we know? Well, there are varying intensity levels of physical activity, which range all the way from level 1, which is very light activity, which is doing anything other than sleeping. So watching TV or riding in a car, you're basically not moving at all, but you're not asleep. All the way up to level 10, which is max effort activity. This is when it feels almost impossible to keep going, or you're completely out of breath and unable to talk. So there's never really any reason to ever reach that level 10, that max effort activity. You never have to get to that level to get the benefits of exercise. Primarily, we're going to want to stay in the 4 to 6 range and the 7 to 8 range of physical activity. So that 4 to 6 level range is our moderate activity, which is what the recommendation is, that 150 minutes of moderate activity. So this is when it feels like you can exercise for hours. You may be breathing heavily, but you can still hold a short conversation. And then going up from that will be the level 7 to 8, which is our vigorous activity. So this is when you're on the verge of becoming uncomfortable, but you are not uncomfortable yet, and you're not experiencing any pain. And this is when you are typically short of breath, but you can still speak a sentence, but you couldn't hold a conversation. So what are the benefits of physical activity? So the main one is that it improves our general well-being. It helps us to keep off weight or manage our weight. It improves our mood and reduces our stress almost immediately because exercise releases endorphins into the brain, which is the happy hormone. So we immediately experience an uplift in mood, and reduce stress. It also increases our energy, it improves our muscle tone, it strengthens our heart, lungs, and bones. It helps us to reduce back pain, which can be really important for any of us who are sitting at a desk for most of the day at work. And it also helps to improve our sleep so that we get better quality sleep. But the most important benefit of exercise is probably that it protects against chronic disease. And it actually protects against several chronic diseases, such as stroke, heart attack, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and some cancers. It helps us to control blood glucose, which is important for those who have diabetes. It raises our good cholesterol, or the high density lipoprotein, or HDL. It lowers our bad cholesterol, which is the low density lipoprotein, or LDL. It lowers our triglycerides, which are the amount of fat cells in our blood. And it also lowers our blood pressure, which is a big relief to our heart. So ultimately, physical activity helps us to live longer and avoid high healthcare costs in the future. And it's also important to track your physical activity, since physical activity is one of the things that we can easily measure and keep track of in order to eliminate any ambiguity, keep track of our progress, and keep us accountable. You can start as early as today. Many of us have Apple Watches or Fitbits or other sort of smartwatches that we wear all the time that are always tracking our movements, the number of steps we take, the number of minutes we are physically active. And even if you don't have a smartwatch, our phones can also record our steps, just as long as you have your phone with you wherever you go. And even if you do not want to get like an actual smart watch, you can also just get a cheaper pedometer watch that'll just track your steps. It doesn't connect via Bluetooth or anything like that to a phone, but you can keep track of it manually. And then when you have a smartwatch or you're using some sort of tracker to track your movement, it's also important to keep kind of like a physical record of how much you are stepping or moving each day. So you can keep track of what your average steps or number of minutes were for that whole week. And then you can set a goal for the next week on how much more you'd like to move. And in the handout for this module, there will be an activity tracker that you can use. So on the flip side of physical activity, there's our sedentary time. So this is any waking activity where an individual is sitting or laying down and requires little to no energy. So sitting at a desk, at work, or watching TV. And this sedentary time does the opposite of physical activity. It actually increases our risk for preventable chronic diseases, and its effects are independent from physical activity. So sitting disease is one thing you may have heard about living an over-sedentary lifestyle. So the typical American does spend about 21 hours of the day sedentary, while only 3 hours of the day active, which is a big problem and leads to sitting disease, which basically means that we have an increased risk of chronic diseases, organ damage, spine damage, muscle degeneration, leg disorders are also a big issue. And sitting disease actually causes 94% higher chance of death in women who sit for 6 or more hours a day compared to their standing counterparts, and a 48% higher chance of death in inactive men who sit for 6+ hours a day compared to their standing counterparts. So with every 2 hours spent sitting, 352 calories are conserved as compared to someone standing for the same amount of time. So you may want to consider getting a standing desk if one is offered by your department, or just getting up in general to move around. So it is recommended that every hour of sedentary behavior, you get up and you stretch, maybe go to the water fountain, refill your water bottle, go use the restroom, just take some sort of break. It doesn't have to be very long. It could just be a few seconds, but just get up and move your body, because you want to break up long periods of sitting as often as possible and just minimize the time spent sitting each day. And so as we go through the rest of the presentation, I want you to think about what you normally do to break up the time that you're sitting. And if you don't do anything, how can you incorporate more movement into your day? So there are some common barriers to physical activity. So let's talk about them and kind of try to break them down. So the main one is, of course, I have no time. But I'd like to encourage you to change your perception on this. 150 minutes might seem like a lot when we first hear it, but in actuality, it's only 1% of your time in a week. So think about other ways that you're spending your time in a week that's maybe more than 1% and that you aren't getting any benefit from. So I know one for me is I spend a lot of time on social media. I spend a lot more than 1% of my time a week on social media. So if I just cut off a little bit of time that I spent on Instagram or Facebook and instead got up and took my dog on a 1 mile walk, I'd reach that 150 minutes for that week pretty quickly. So think about ways that you can cut down on some sedentary activities that you may do and convert it into physical activity. You may also be too tired, and I get that. We work 8 hours a day. At the end of the day, we kind of just want to go home and rest, and we don't really want to move our body. So to combat this, you can try scheduling exercise at the time of the day when you feel most fresh, which is typically at the beginning of the day, but maybe also when you get home. You may feel a rush of energy because you're no longer at work, your environment has changed. So maybe that's a time of the day that you can just immediately go into physical activity. And another common barrier is having family obligations. If you have children or another person that you are a caregiver of, it may be harder for you to find time to do a 30-minute workout. But instead, get your family involved and active. So you could maybe go on a walk with your kids, do some stretches with an older parent that you may be the caregiver of. Try to get your loved ones involved as much as possible. You may also think that you don't have the motivation or willpower, but motivation is not waiting for a time that is perfect to do what is right. It is pressing forward regardless and achieving your goal. Motivation is not something that will just strike you like lightning. It's kind of something you have to cultivate for yourself. You may also think that you don't like exercise. But exercise doesn't have to mean running or going to the gym. You can find a fun activity such as frisbee, sports, gardening, hiking, window shopping, um, walking a dog even, that maybe it doesn't feel like physical activity to you because it's something fun, it's a hobby, but that will get your heart moving and will help you to live a healthier life. And so here are some tips on how to make active choices both at work and at home. So at work, you can take walking breaks or schedule walking meetings. So if you have a one-on-one recurring meeting with your supervisor, maybe you can ask to have that meeting be a walk around the building rather than just sitting in their office and talking. You can also make an effort to take the stairs instead of the elevator. That's a great way to get your heart pumping. You can park further away from the entrance to your office. You can also walk to colleagues' offices or cubicles to communicate instead of just using the phone or email. And you can also find a gym close to your office that makes it easier for you to do physical activity right when you get off of work. And so these may seem like small changes, but if you do all of them, they will add up over time and really increase your overall minutes of physical activity each day. And at home, you can implement the no sit rule, which is a self-imposed rule that I really like, which is basically where when I get home from work, I do not take a seat anywhere. I do not lay in my bed. I do not sit down or lay down until I have exercised. That is my rule. I'll also leave out my like exercise clothes and shoes out somewhere in my room where I will immediately see it as soon as I get home. And then I know, okay, I can't sit down until I've done my workout for that day. You can also take a walk after meal. So maybe after dinner, you can take a walk with your partner or your dog. You can also replace after dinner shows with a trip to the park. You can play with your kids or ask your roommates or partner to complete an exercise video with you. Getting more people involved will help keep you accountable and increase that motivation to work out. And you can also just have fun, explore different activities. Like I said on the previous slide, physical activity doesn't just have to be hitting the gym. It could be rock climbing, it could be going to a park, it could be biking, it could be literally anything you wanted to do, just as long as you're not sitting down. So find a hobby that you really enjoy, explore different activities, and just find one that you really like and that you can stick to very easily. And then there's also the FITT principle, which is a good guideline for helping you to figure out how long and how hard you should exercise for. So F stands for frequency or how often you are active. So our aerobic fitness levels go down within 48 hours of no activity. So it's important to be active often and with more frequency. So a good tip is try to be active on most days of the week. Again, this doesn't have to be like a 30-minute exercise video. It could just be taking a walk around the block. At least 3 days per week is recommended. 5 to 7 days is much better. To avoid soreness or injury, increase the frequency slowly. So if you're new to exercise, don't immediately start exercising 7 days a week. Do 2 to 3 days for a week, and then next week, maybe do 3 to 4, then 4 to 5, kind of build up slowly. So then I stands for intensity, or how hard you work while you're active. So again, referring back to those intensity levels we talked about earlier. This intensity is usually measured by how fast your heart is beating. So we want your heart to beat faster than it usually does when you're at rest, so that it will become stronger. The heart is a muscle, so you have to work it out just like any other muscle. But your heart should not be beating so fast that you could injure yourself. If you ever feel faint, if you feel dizzy, just stop immediately, because we do not want you to hurt yourself. And another way to estimate how hard you should be working is that you should be able to have a conversation while you're active, or you should at least be able to say a sentence, but you should not be able to sing. If you are able to break into song, if you're able to sing along to whatever playlist you are listening to while you're exercising, that means you have to speed up your exercise. Okay. The next is T, which stands for time, or how long you're active. So to improve your aerobic fitness, you should stay active continuously for at least 10 minutes. And again, we recommend that you slowly increase the time you're active. If you're new to exercise, you're not going to be able to run a marathon tomorrow. You have to build up to it. The total recommended minutes of activity you should engage in for cardiovascular benefits is at 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity each week. And the final T stands for type, or the type of activity you do. So to improve your fitness, you should do aerobic activities, which are the ones that get your heart pumping. They're the ones that really help your cardiovascular health. So again, this includes brisk walking, jogging, swimming, biking. These activities use large muscle groups, such as those in your arms and legs, and they should last 10 minutes or longer. Brief activities that do not require your heart to work harder, such as bowling, pitching a softball, washing a window, will not improve your aerobic fitness, though it's still good to do them. And so determining how much physical activity you do each day can be difficult, but again, you can track your activity using a smartwatch or some other type of tool. And next, of course, you do want to keep it safe. Again, build up your brisk activity slowly into higher intensity, and then start each session slowly to warm up and end each session slowly to cool down. It's a good idea to stretch after you finish working out. That just helps to improve muscle as well as help to keep you safe from injury. You also want to drink plenty of water before, during, and after the activity. And of course, always wear comfortable shoes and keep your feet dry. So next we're going to talk about SMART goals. So first I want you to compare these two goals. The first one being, I will participate in vigorous physical activity sometime this week, versus I will take 8,000 steps every day this week. Which of these goals do you think is more effective, and which individual do you think is more likely to succeed, and why? So if you chose the second one, you're right. So goal setting is a powerful process for thinking about the future, and it will lead to better performance because it turns our vision into a reality and it paves a path for us to follow. Just saying you want to be more physically active is not as good of a goal as saying you want to reach 8,000 steps every day this week. And that's because that second goal is a SMART goal, which means it is specific, where you are saying exactly what you are trying to achieve. It is measurable, so you will know when you've achieved it. It is attainable, so it is actually possible for you to achieve it. Again, if you're just new to exercise and your goal is to run a marathon in a week, that's not attainable, but maybe running a marathon or a half marathon in 6 months, that would be more attainable. It would be relevant. So does it contribute to your growth and to your vision for the future? And it's time bound. So you have to set a deadline for yourself of when exactly do you want to achieve this goal. And so this is a program log that can help you to keep on top of your SMART goals. A version of this will be in your handout for the module, as I said previously. And so basically one way you can improve this, if your goal is to hit a certain number of steps each day or a certain number of minutes each day for physical activity, you'll basically fill in each day your daily steps or your daily minutes of exercise, as well as your sedentary hours. You'll fill them in for each day. You'll figure out your total, then you'll calculate your average. And so then that will give you, if you did it for this week, for example, that would give you a baseline of where you're currently at in terms of your steps, your exercise, and your sedentary hours. And then that will give you a baseline to base your SMART goal off of. So let's say that my baseline, I'm at an average of 6,000 steps a day. I would make my SMART goal for the next week. This next week, I will reach 8,000 steps at least 5 days out of the week. And so that'll be my goal for the next week. And then I can track it again in next week's exercise log. And then I can continue going from there, creating new goals for each week. So our take-home message for Module 1 is that being physically active provides many benefits to our health and well-being. Prolonged sedentary time is harmful to our health, and setting SMART goals and using an activity log helps us progressively reach bigger goals. Again, there is a handout associated with each module, so please take the time to fill in your notes on that handout to create your start tracking your steps and create your SMART goals for physical activity for Module 1. And then in the next module, we'll talk more about healthy eating. But until then, remember that small steps will lead to big results. Thank you.